Good morning. This is the BLAINESWORLD webcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You get more information about our previous shows and future shows at our website, which is behind me, blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week, we focus on cool things that are happening in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce two of my favorite folks in the Asheville area, and they are Mark and Shelley Lieberman. And guys, you can wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this. Okay, and that's Mark and Shelley Lieberman. Shelley Lieberman has been a resident of Asheville in the last 7 years. She's been involved with theater and singing since she retired, and she played such roles as Mrs. Frank in The Diary of Anne Frank, Yentl and Fiddler on the Roof, Pinocchio in Shrek, and Scuttle in The Little Mermaid. She sings in the Asheville Symphony Chorus, Carolina Concert Choir, the Flat Rock Chorus, and Women's Song, and she's excited to be bringing a Bintel Brief to Asheville in its showing at Beth Israel Synagogue. Mark Lieberman is a corporate attorney with broad legal and management experience targeting healthcare entities, physicians, and pharmaceutical and biotechnical technology companies, experience in healthcare compliance, corporate transactions, securities, and a whole bunch of other things. Mark is also active in the theater community, and he's been involved in a lot of different plays, and just a really neat guy, as you'll see when we speak to him in just a second. And in addition, Mark, we should mention that you're also on the faculty at Ollie at UNCA, does a lot of teaching there.
And my wife and I both sing at the Asheville Symphony Chorus. We're almost inseparable.
Okay. And almost, I like how you said that too, in your spare time, because I don't know how you guys do it, but I don't see, I'm looking, I don't see your roller skates there. But you guys get around though, don't you?
We do.
And not only that, which you mentioned too, Mark, not only do you sing at the places you mentioned and Shelley mentioned, you also sang overseas as well, right? You done a couple of concerts elsewhere?
Well, we did one in London last year. We were fortunate enough to sing in a cathedral with over 100 singers from many cities across the world. And we're reprising that again because we're also now going in June to Mexico to sing with another group. I have trouble pronouncing the name, and Shelley's Spanish is better than mine. But we just did 2 concerts. I did 2 concerts last week. Shelley did a concert last week. And the next time we do the concert with the Carolina Concert Choir will be in Mexico.
And let me ask you too, in terms of these concerts you're doing, and Shelley's doing singing with Women's Song, do you have a preference as to your favorite kind of thing that you do aside from the teaching? In terms of, you've been in shows as well. Do you have a preference as to shows or concerts?
You know, I wasn't that interested in music or choir singing until I was an adult. I had acted in some musicals. So that was a little further down on my list of things to do. But now I find it very satisfying for my soul. My singing voice presumably has improved. But they're all different. I enjoyed teaching a lot because I teach a lot of stuff on constitutional law and government and on timely topics. Those can be somewhat depressing, as you know, but I like the idea of preparing for it and learning things, and also teaching to an interested and educated class of also retirees. As far as plays, always up for a good play, looking for interesting roles. Shelley and I have both done musical theater, we've done dramatic theater, we've done comedy, we've even done some improv work. So I think all these things help to feed the soul and give you a sense of purpose, after we retired from our respective careers.
And Shelley, the same question in terms of you being in either a play or you being in a concert, or now also all of a sudden you're becoming a producer of sorts. Do you have a preference as to what you enjoy doing best?
I think it all, I love it all for different reasons. Each choir and chorus that I've been in, it's different, whether it's popular music. Flat rock is a lot of popular music, classical music for the Asheville Symphony Chorus. I like the variety, and I really do enjoy the musical theater on stage, live, learning the dancing and learning the singing. I love all of it. So I can't say I prefer one over the other. I love it all.
That's kind of a perfect segue, I guess, into what we're talking about this morning, and that's a Bintel brief, which are actually one of you're producing it, I guess, in the Asheville area. And so before we talk about the actual show itself, what is a Bintel brief, or what's the idea behind it?
You want me to?
Oh, okay, Mark,
I'll take a first shot at it, and Shelley can come behind. Bintel brief is a Yiddish phrase. It actually means a bundle of letters. That's the derivation of it. A Bintel brief came about in terms of a regular writing in one of the many Yiddish newspapers that proliferated in the United States around the turn of the 20th century. It was published in one of those newspapers called, in English, the Forward, or Vorwort in German. And it spoke to a lot of the Jewish immigrants who had immigrated from Europe, obviously before World War I, and then into World War II. It was only in Yiddish, but they had a fairly large subscription base, starting around 25,000, and at its height, 275,000 people read it, and that height was reached after it was translated into both English and Yiddish. It came out as a daily newspaper, and then ultimately became a weekly newspaper. And regretfully, like newspapers in general, it's no longer available in terms of new editions in print, but it is available on podcast, and it is available on the internet, and still followed and considered by many to be important perspective on life. But the Bintel brief itself, just to segue into that and move this along, is it's an advice column, sort of on the order of Dear Abby, or in my day, Ann Landers, in which everyday people, and in this case, primarily the Jewish community, who were trying to adapt to and assimilate into this country, but still had heritage, obviously, from the old world, and were encountering daily problems, much like all of us, but a lot of it centered on sort of maintaining a Jewish identity, while at the same time trying to move up in the American community, the United States community, and dealing with, again, a litany of everyday problems.
Now,
And
Mark, let me jump in, Mark, just
sure,
to ask you this question. So the brief, and you mentioned still on the air, through podcasts. Is that now currently, is that in Yiddish or English?
it's in English. It's
Okay.
probably also covered in Yiddish, but it's definitely English, and it's not. I'm perhaps misspoke. It's a podcast, but you can also get on the internet and get the website for the Forward and locate the newspaper and see all the stories that they publish about world events and things that are going on in the United States.
Now, Shelley, are either of you, do either of you, or have you ever spoken Yiddish?
Well, my mother used to speak it to her mother, and unfortunately, they used Yiddish so that we wouldn't understand what they were talking about. But I know her intonations, and I was able to pretty much understand her and learned a lot of the words in everyday language. One of mine favorite is when I'm all confused, I go, I'm famished.
Right, yeah.
Those kind of words. I use them all the time. But yeah, unfortunately, it was lost in our generation to some extent.
And like you said, yeah, hardly anybody I know speaks Yiddish anymore. But at one time, it was, not only was it popular, but as you said, a lot of expressions we use are still Yiddish or Yiddish based, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I
So
enjoy hearing some of the newscasters occasionally use a Yiddish word here and there. And just to be clear and add a little bit of perspective, I came from somewhat the same or exactly the same background as Shelley. I learned mostly, unfortunately, Yiddish swear words, which sometimes come in handy. But also, it was a secret code, so to speak, between my parents and their parents. But as it turns out, Yiddish is experiencing somewhat of a revival these days, and it's becoming more popular. People are forming Yiddish play groups, similar to what we're talking about here, book clubs and the like. And it's still it's got feet. It's still moving forward, and it's also interesting for us to know that a lot of the comedians in the early 20th century and beyond did speak Yiddish, and they had an active audience, and not just newspapers, but Yiddish theater. And again, in contemporary times, there are still Yiddish theaters that perform and are active not only in New York City but in parts of Florida. So it's not Latin and it's not French, but it still has a following.
because I've seen that, Mark, where they'll take a play and do it in Yiddish, and I've never seen it. I don't know if you guys have, but I'd love to at some point in time, seeing it, especially Shelley, like a musical or something that's popular, and see it done in Yiddish. I think that, have you ever seen anything done in Yiddish yet?
Shelley?
Uh,
Not yet? Okay. Something to look forward to. And let's fast forward then, if you would, Shelley, to a Bintel brief, and let's show that you folks are going to be involved in May. And so talk about the play itself. Who wrote it, or who came up with the idea for the play?
well, my sister Alice Cotman, who lives in Sarasota, Florida, brought it to Sarasota first. She had found out about this bundle of letters, so to speak, and had seen it had been written. There is information that surrounds the letters explaining what the letters are. So she basically put together a play and produced it in Sarasota, and she had a singer that sang so many of the Yiddish songs so beautifully. And I'd seen it. It was actually during COVID time. They did it in Zoom. So they kept it going, and she did it. I don't know how many times. I think she's done it at least 5 times. Then my other sister, Beverly Horwitz, took it to Dayton, Ohio, and started a Bintel brief there. And that's when I decided it would be really nice to actually bring it here to Asheville. And luckily, our synagogue wanted to have an Israeli Independence Day celebration. And we wanted to celebrate the Jewish spirit, and especially the Jewish pioneering spirit, both Israel as well as the United States. And so we thought that this would be a really nice play reading to put on at the synagogue. So that's the whole story about how this play got started and how I'm bringing it now here. I'm very, very excited about it.
And just listen to it sounds exciting to me as well. So if folks want to see it, give the information on the date and how to get tickets, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, it's actually on Israeli Independence Day, which this year is May 14th. And it's being done at the Beth Israel Synagogue in
Litigation,
Asheville.
Beth. Yeah.
And the website is bethisraelnc.org, and that would be BETHISRAELNC.org /calendar, and then click on 5/14, which is the date, and you can get tickets for this. The event is going to have a catered Israeli dinner, and then we're doing half of the play, having dessert, and then the second half of the play.
And you
So
mentioned
that's
to
it.
me off there something else that's kind of cool about it. It's not only going to be your actors and including the two of you, but you're also going to have music as well. Is that correct?
Yes, what we're doing is instead of having one singer, we're actually having a klezmer band, the bandana klezmer band, and they're going to play like 7 songs throughout the play. So interspersed within the letters, they're going to do a song.
Play
Some of
and
them will
sing.
be audience participation.
Okay. And to give folks, I think, a better idea of what this is all about, if I can kind of put you and Mark on the spot, you mentioned these letters. Do you have a sample you can go through or read what it's going to sound like?
Yeah, I would love to do it. First of all, I wanted to explain a little bit more about the letters. The immigrants poured their heart out in these letters. They had all types of different issues that they wanted advice from Mr. Editor. So they were letters about love and jealousy and marriage and abandonment and poverty and illness and girls that were lured into brothels and just all different types of issues that they were putting forward. So yes, this one, I would love to read a letter, and Mr. Editor, who is being played by Mark, would love to give an answer.
So wait, let me just before you do that. So I think I'm getting this. So the publication itself, with just these letters people would write in, did it have other stuff in the publication, or was just all based on letters?
If I can step on this one, I mentioned earlier the forward newspaper.
Right.
So it was like a traditional newspaper. It had a news section, and to this day, it still has a sports section. I looked it up on the internet, and they cover a lot of sports, and they single out the Jewish players in baseball players and other sports, few though they may be. Many of them actually world-class athletes, baseball players for the Atlanta Braves and another team whose name escapes me. So it was in the concept of, okay, here's the front page, here's a classified section, here's the news, and here is letters to that are included in the Bentel brief as a column. So the individual writing in would write, and that would be published, and then below that would be the editor's response. And of course, I don't know how they would do comments, but that was sort of the give and take. Dear editor, I have this problem. Can you help me?
So Shelley, let's then have you, I guess, read one of the letters, and Mark will be the editor. He'll give the response.
That
Yes.
sounds like
Okay.
a plan. Let's do it. All right. So this letter is in 1910. Dear editor, since I do not want my conscience to bother me, I ask you to decide whether a married woman has a right to go to school 2 evenings a week. My husband thinks I have no right to do this. I admit I cannot be satisfied to be just a wife and mother. I am still young, and I want to learn and enjoy my children and my house are not rejected, but I go to evening high school twice a week. My husband is not pleased, and when I come home at night and ring the bell, he lets me stand outside a long time intentionally and doesn't hurry to open the door. Now he has announced a new decision because I send out the laundry to be done. It seems to him that I have too much time for myself, even enough to go to school. So from now on, he will count out every penny for everything I have to buy for the house. So I will not be able to send out the laundry anymore. And when I have to do the work myself, there won't be any time left for such foolishness as going to school. I told him that I'm willing to do my own washing, but that I would still be able to find time for study. When I am alone with my thoughts, I feel I may not be right. Perhaps I should not go to school. I want to say that my husband is an intelligent man and he wants to marry a woman who is educated. The fact that he is intelligent makes me more annoyed with him. He is in favor of the emancipation of women, yet in real life, he acts contrary to his beliefs. Awaiting your opinion on this, I remain your reader, the discontented wife.
And Mark, before you answer, let me just jump in, Shelley, or should mention to people that that accent, by the way, I loved it. That's not your usual voice, or which is your usual voice now, or the one you just read?
I think it's the way it is now.
Okay, no, but I love that accent. That was so cool.
Yeah, when I was studying for Yenta,
Yeah.
I
Fiddler on the Roof.
a Fiddler on the Roof, yeah. Mark got me involved with a coach, a vocal coach, who actually coached Mike Myers from Shrek. And he signed me up for a session to learn how to do the accent.
Okay. Now, by the way, you mentioned too before your grandparents. Did they have that kind of accent?
Yes.
Okay, that was so perfect. So, Mark, before I put you on the spot and give the answer, which everybody's waiting for, just look at the work on the camera though. Just keep up. You got it, so we don't lose you in that. But now Mark as the editor, and the editor's name was what? Just editor, or was there a name to it?
Just Mr. Editor, just editor.
Okay. And I won't put you on the spot, Mark, and ask you how you really answer this question if you were asked it, now. But take it from the 1910.
Oh, wait. Before you do it, he does have a name. His name is Abraham Kahan.
He was the editor of the forward. Correct,
Okay.
Shelley. Thank you.
So again, what Shelley, it'd be interesting, but I won't put Mark on the spot to see how he would really answer that. I've asked it now, but in 1910, Mark, as the editor, how do you answer
I think you might be surprised.
it?
My answer, since this man is intelligent and a supporter of the women's emancipation movement, he is scolded severely in the answer in wanting to keep his wife so enslaved. Also, is the opinion that the wife absolutely has the right to go to school 2 evenings a week. The fact is that many intelligent women are already taking part in various activities, and they still remain excellent homemakers. Justice can reign among people only when they all have equal rights.
We're back with Mark Lieberman and Shelley Lieberman talking about an exciting play that's going to be coming to the Asheville area in the near future, A Bintel Breathe. And we're in the middle of an answer that Mark, who's playing the editor of a publication, is giving to this one woman who wrote this letter about complaining about her life and how she's being treated. So Mark, or Mr. Editor, jump in again to it.
If one has more power than the other, it leads to injustice. Those men who are opposed to giving women the same rights they possess are acting from tyrannical instincts because they actually want to rule the woman.
Oh, that's the answer?
Short and succinct.
But same question. You really hit that accent. How did you get that accent?
Well, I was also in Fiddler. I did pick up a lot of the Yiddish accent from my grandparents. My mother tended to confuse German and Yiddish, which is fairly easy to do. But I have an affinity, and I listen to a lot of Jewish comedians, singers, and the like. So pretty much, picked it up, self-taught.
Because I'm trying to remember too, when you were I think I saw you in Anne Frank. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And
correct.
did you have an accent in that as well?
I did. It was, Otto Frank, the father, had an interesting background because he actually was born in Germany and then immigrated to Amsterdam, to Holland. So it was a little bit of the Dutch German with a little bit of the Yiddish thrown in. So it's a melting pot, so to speak.
And Shelley, back to you. Talk a little bit about then the idea of putting this together. So you got some of the information from your sisters and they had done it elsewhere. You came up with the idea to do it in Asheville. How long did it take you to get from the idea to where you are now?
Okay, well, I addressed Pam Goldsmith, who is in charge of a lot of the extra activities at the synagogue, as well as Rochelle Wright at the synagogue, and there we sat down and we discussed having this play. And I don't think it's been more than 3 or 4 months ago that we decided to put this together. So at a Tu B'Shvat celebration, we said, hey, anyone here in the synagogue that wants to be in the cast, please see us immediately. And we got our cast that way. And we had a couple readings to go over the script. I put the script together and changed the introduction and the ending to tie it in with the Israeli Independence Day theme. And they're getting ready. We're ready to have a dress rehearsal Sunday, and then maybe one more rehearsal, and then we're ready to rock and roll.
And
Can
so
we,
talk about, yeah, I'm
can,
sorry,
can I
Bob.
just add something?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So how we actually thought about the synagogue goes back a little further. The synagogue is pretty small, and there's a relatively small Jewish community in Asheville, but vibrant. And they've been, Jewish merchants were in this city, years ago. So this synagogue, and I'm sure others, are frequently looking for ways to provide enrichment other than just, the religious services. So once certain members of the synagogue found out that Shelley and I were both actors and singers, we were actually tapped a couple of years ago to put on a play on another Jewish festival day called Purim. And usually these Purim plays are satirical. They're called Purim spiels. And Shelley and I were in 2 of those productions, and used the synagogue as a way again of introducing us and the community to a different sort of concept as far as Jewish life is concerned. So we hope to continue doing that in the future, and it looks like we're going to have a pretty strong attendance at this play reading.
Again, Shelley, talk a little bit about then if folks come to the play reading, they're not only going to see the play reading, but you mentioned there's going to be a full course dinner beforehand, and
Yes.
details on that.
Yeah, there's going to be an Israeli, I think it might be a buffet, but there's like Israeli dishes that are going to be, it's being catered by Baba Nam, I think is the name of the caterer for that. They have a restaurant downtown, and they're going to be doing that. And once that's finished, then we're settle down and start the actual play reading, have dessert in the middle, and then continue on. So I'm very, very excited about this. This is going to be a really interesting piece, and we want anybody in the community to come, not just the congregants. We want everyone to be exposed to this.
And not just the Jewish community, and just not to be just politically correct. It would be appropriate to refer to it as Mediterranean food, and Baba Yam actually is run by some folks from the Arab community. So a lot of the food cuts across cultural lines.
That's what I was thinking as Shelley's describing it. Yeah, I wasn't familiar with it in terms of Jewish food. But the great thing about this play, as you're describing it, Shelley, is that it has like sort of a universal interest that I guess the subjects, you mentioned the one about the woman, wanting some independence from her husband. What are some of the other topics that are covered in these letters?
Yeah, well, I was talking about there's love, jealousy. There is one letter. A woman was lured into a brothel, and she tried to escape. And one was forced to marry somebody that she didn't want to marry. And then there was one that there were like some about illness. I don't think that one was covered in this. Poverty, getting a job, whether they should go back to Russia. They missed Russia. Should they return? A lot of just what would happen in the 1900s. And they're struggling to adjust to the new environment. They've left Russia and Poland for a better life. They were impoverished. There were pogroms. That means there were attacks from the natives, and they left for a better life here in America. And so here they are. They don't know the language. They take very low-level jobs to get started. They do this for the next generation. And they're pouring out their souls of all these things that happen on a daily basis to them. And they really want advice. They really want some direction in how to live. And I find the spirit the same as now. You know, what do people do when they want to settle in a new country? Why do they leave? What drives them to come to America? They called it the golden Medina, the golden land. These immigrants, they thought that this would be a place for them to start a new life.
Mark, talk about your responses in terms of how relevant do you think they are even now? In other words, you read a letter from 1910 and are sort of still spot on in a lot of instances. Do you feel that's true about most of the responses?
I absolutely do. I mean, the issues that are brought up from this time period and with a certain sect of people are universal. In the letter that Shelley was reading, there were two themes that predominated. One is, the issue of female independence and a degree of autonomy, still wanting to adhere to tradition, but at the same time, wanting to express themselves. And the other one, which I think is very timely for today, is education. And it's oftentimes said that Jewish immigrants coming to America, one of the things that they prized most was education, and using education as a means of progressing economically, but also assimilating. And those issues are still terribly important, and not obviously with just the Jewish community, but communities of color. There's a lot of issues that still are about equality. We have this issue frequently about who should pay for education, and what about these monstrous loans that kids have to pay, and what about people who want to pursue a trade and don't necessarily benefit from or don't think they'll benefit from college. These are issues that transcend time, transcend religion and culture. And these people that were writing these letters probably in real life didn't have very many people that they could talk to intimately, and that might have even been embarrassed. But somehow or other, and I think we see this sometimes on social media, when you're putting it in print and sending it to a person that you do not know, you're able to actually delve deeper into what the issues are. And the role of the editor, generally in terms of these letters that we're working on, he tries hard not to be critical. He tries to recognize and empathize with whoever is writing and whatever they're writing about. Shelley mentioned the one letter about prostitution. Obviously, not something that you would want to extol the virtues of, and the editor doesn't do that. But they recognize sometimes, in order to exist, you have to do things that you wouldn't ordinarily do. So I think it's timeless.
Shelley, you mentioned also kind of a cool way you got people to act in this. You just mentioned it, and a bunch of folks came forward. Do any of them have acting backgrounds, or most of them had never acted before?
Most of them were new to it. Pam had definitely has some experience, but they're new to it. And we were working and trying. My sister Alice coached one time and got them into character. It was wonderful that she was able to do one Zoom that was directing us. So yeah, they're new,
Do they
but
all
they're wonderful.
do they have accents, each of them, or do you have them doing that?
They're all trying to. I'm trying to, give them some pointers as to, what, like instead of saying "wa," say "the," trying to, get them into it. And again, Pam, some do have, and Carolyn, I wanted to mention who all my actors
I was going
are.
to say,
That would
let's
be
give a
okay.
shout out to them, if you would, Shelley, please.
Yeah, so hold on, let me find them. Okay, here we go. I have a list of all my cast members here. They are Mark Lieberman, take a bow, Mark,
Okay.
Pam Goldschmidt, Al Goldschmidt, Carolyn Kane, Beth Appel, and let's see, myself, Shelley Lieberman, and our fabulous klezmer band. And those members are Mark Radow, Meg Peterson, and Andy John.
And by the way,
That's my class.
You talk about the band itself. Talk about klezmer music for the benefit of folks who don't know what it is.
Okay. Let's see. I actually have that information right here. The klezmers were actually traveling musicians. And they went from village to village and they would perform on town squares. They would carry their violins and clarinets on their back, and they would go from town to town and sing these Yiddish songs. And it was a real source of entertainment for the actual villagers. And I think that that tradition is continued.
Heavy on the
And
clarinet. I would
and
describe it as Benny Goodman goes vaudevillian.
yeah, yeah.
But it's so
This was
great. It's so great music to listen to, though, especially if
Yes.
people are not familiar with it. It's just a lot of fun to listen to. Benny Goodman, I love that. Goes vaudeville. Great description of it. So again, to wrap up, if folks want to see this play, and you get me really excited about it now, Shelley, if you would repeat both the date, location, and then more importantly, how to get tickets.
Okay, again, it's at Beth Israel Synagogue, and that is May 14th, which is the Israeli Independence Day. And you can go to this website, bethisraelnc.org/calendar. Go to the date 5/14 and click on it, and you can buy tickets.
And the congregation is located on Murdoch Road, and the formal name of it is Congregation Beth Israel.
And Shelley, if you can just send me an email with that information, because in the description of this show, I'll also put it in the description as well. So if people just want to see how to get tickets, they can do so. Last question to ask you both. So after this particular endeavor, do you have anything else you can share with us that is in the upcoming or future plans? So you're busy doing so many different things. What's upcoming, Shelley, for you? Anything you can share?
Yeah, Woman's Song concert then is that weekend, right after the Bintel Brief. I think it's the 17th and 18th. And that is being done at the UU Church. And again, there's a lot of songs that we're celebrating women is our central theme for this presentation. We do around 13 songs, all memorized, and there's introductions that introduce each theme. So that's Woman's Song coming up, and then of course in June is our Mexico trip that we're going to be doing with the Carolina Concert Choir.
Okay, and then after that, retirement, right? After
Yeah,
all this
right.
activity,
Yeah, then it starts all over
I was going
again.
to say until your next thing. And Mark, the same question. We have the trip. Anything else you can announce?
Well, I'm going to be teaching again at Ollie. Probably going to give myself a bit of a break and do it again in the fall. Tentatively, I am planning to talk about the Second Amendment and guns, and I usually get a lot of participation. I try not to teach as a lawyer, a little difficult, and encourage class participation. And there's just so many people that are interested in getting perspective on what happens with the government, what happens at the Supreme Court. So that's what I try to stick to. And then next spring, because we're already sort of planning ahead, Ollie is the senior group that I teach in. We're going to do themed lectures around the central theme of women's rights, LGBTQ, and how those niches essentially play into some of the legal concerns. And we already, everybody knows what we're talking about. It's reproductive rights, it's First Amendment and book banning and so on and so forth. But we're going to talk about it from the perspective of the groups who have had sort of the most difficult time trying to maintain their liberties, independence, and freedom. So that's what's coming up.
And Mark, I'm going to have to get you on again, especially on that Second Amendment show, because I really want to talk to you about that. And I guess lastly, if folks want to get in touch with either you individually, you're both on Facebook, or what is there a best way to track you down?
Well, I have a handle that you helped me conceive years ago, The World According to Mark, back when we started, when we were at the radio station. I do podcasts. I have to acknowledge that I've done them a little less frequently because I've had a very busy schedule with plays and singing and so on and so forth. But The World According to Mark, just plug that in. You'll find older but still relevant podcast on government, or I talk again, just like you do, to people across Asheville in North Carolina and across the country about topical issues, whether it's the Supreme Court or impeachment.
So it's World According to Mark, I guess at .com. Is that correct?
.net.
.net. Thank you. And Shelley, same question, a final question. If folks want to track you down to see some of the stuff you're involved in or going to be involved in the future, best bet is Facebook.
Facebook, just under Shelley Lieberman. That would be Shelley. And then Lieberman is Lieberman.
Okay.
Loved one, that's what it means.
Okay, and again, I encourage folks to keep track of these two folks because we're gonna find they are involved in some interesting stuff. As always, guys, thanks a lot for being my guest. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much
Thanks,
for having
Blaine.
us on.
Appreciate
Also,
it.
I'd like to thank my producer, Cappy DeSetti, and we look forward to you. I have that date down, May 14th. Should be an exciting event. Hope to see you then. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.